and the contractor was CFILC for these California Disaster Coalition topic calls. And I'm your host. And description, let's see, graying hair, bright blue shirt. I did try and clean up my office today, but you may say, if that's cleaned up, you still have work to do. So I know that, but it's just something I've struggled with all my life. So wearing glasses, and that's me. So we're going to start today with an accessibility briefing. So over to you, Anthony, for a moment.
Yeah, hi everyone, good morning. If you navigate to the bottom of the Zoom screen, there is an icon with 2 C's. If you press on that, you can allow for closed captioning. And we have our captioner today, Denise Redfield. And in the chat box, I posted a stream text where you can just press that link and just see the text going on there instead of going to the just watching the Zoom. And then at the bottom, if you have any questions, there's a chat box. You can ask questions in the chat box. And then later on, we'll be putting out a poll. So we ask that you answer that so that we can know how to efficiently run these meetings moving forward on the 2nd Thursday and 4th Thursday. And I will also be posting a live stream link in the chat. So if you want to have access to that later, you can. And I'll pass it back to you, June. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So again, welcome all of you. Just to review our up and coming calls, which we'll also put this list for you in chat. Next month, April 12th, we have Vance Taylor, the Chief Office of Access and Functional Needs, California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. So we'll be having a conversation with Vance. And on May 12th, we'll be having a conversation with the partnership with Shaylin Cezelis and Herman Perotti, who are co-executive directors of the partnership. And for those of you who don't know, that's the only disability-led organization with a focused mission on equity for people with disabilities and others with access and functional needs. Throughout the emergency planning process, programs, services, procedures, etc. And in June, that is, we'll be hearing from the World Institute on Disability, their emergency and climate resilient projects. And in July, we'll be hearing from CFILC, Lisa Austin, related to all things about battery use and power issues for life-saving, life-supporting, and life-sustaining devices. What's going on with the world of batteries? And in August, we've got Andy Imparato, the Executive Director of Disability Rights California, talking about the work of the Presidential COVID-19 Health Equity Task Force and their final report and their progress since that report, really what's happening, what's going on with the monitoring of the recommendations. So that's all coming up. And let's see, do we have Russell on the call? I don't see Russell, but just
June, Russell isn't feeling well, so he isn't here today.
Okay. Just a reminder for Russell that the disaster strategy calls will take place on the 4th Thursday of the month, which is March 24th. So, and I believe he's posted a reminder on the list for that meeting. So again, thanks for taking the poll in advance at the end of the call. And something new I'd like to try. If you're able, please use chat to introduce yourself, just your name, in your organization. That would be helpful so we know from where you all are from and a little bit about your role. So today we have a great panel. We have Carly Pacheco, Executive Director of FREED. It's in Nevada County, and you'll hear more about that from Carly in a minute. And we have Sheri Burns, Executive Director of the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center. So this is part 2 of our focus on local relationships with emergency management departments and other partners involved in emergency planning, response, and recovery. So both Carly and Sheri are going to talk about the area, who they serve, the culture of the area, the population, the history, their successes, and how this all came about, the relationships, and what's working, what might need work, how they measure success, lessons that we all can apply and learn from, and what kind of time has taken from their work life. And also the key question, if you disappeared tomorrow, either Sheri or Carly, would what you're describing continue? So that's what we're going to cover. Sheri and Carly's bio, slides, and resources for today have been posted in a Google on Google Docs, and Anthony will be sharing that post in chat. So without any other announcements, Carly, over to you.
Thank you so much, June. Good morning, everyone. Really happy to be here. So I'll introduce myself a little bit. As June said, I'm the Executive Director of FREED. We're an independent living center. We actually serve 5 counties, a little northeast of Sacramento. So we serve Nevada, Sierra, Yuba, Sutter, and Colusa counties. And for those of you who were here for the last presentation with Eli Gillardin, we are also a disability disaster access and resource center. And through that work, we also serve El Dorado and Placer counties. I'm really going to focus on, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, a little bit about me. I'm a middle-aged white woman. I use the pronouns she, her, hers. I'm wearing a pink sweater today, and I have glasses on. And I'm just going to share my screen. I'm really going to focus my conversation on Nevada County this morning, just because our partnership with Office of Emergency Services and around disasters in Nevada has been really long-standing. So I kind of just want to highlight that. And Nevada County tends to experience a lot of disasters. So that we've had a lot of practice in Nevada County specifically. So talking a little bit about our role as an independent living center in emergency management. So we do work pretty closely with our local Office of Emergency Services on emergency planning and sheltering needs. So we've had a long-standing monthly coordination meeting with our Office of Emergency Services, where we can talk about needs for the disability community in general, and kind of help ensure that people with disabilities are integrated into all the steps and processes around emergency planning, response, recovery, and that people are just not forgotten, because that can happen if we're not at the table, right? So we also, for a long time. Part of our intake process has really been to talk with all of our consumers around personal preparedness and emergency preparedness. We offer every consumer the opportunity to work with us on developing their own personal preparedness plan. We sign all consumers up or support them to sign up for notification and alert systems. And that really, you know, we get a lot of materials and really stay in close contact with Office of Emergency Services around that work. During disasters, we work with consumers who may have lost AT or just are experiencing other disability-related sort of challenges. We suspend our normal intake process during emergencies so that we can serve people as quickly as possible. So we just get a little bit of information. We want to be able to follow up. We want people to have the information they need to loop back with us. But we don't conduct a full formal intake because we want to get to people quickly. And then as a Disability Disaster Access and Resource Center, and Eli at the last call talked quite a bit about these services, we can provide temporary housing, transportation, and financial assistance during public safety power shutoffs. And we've also just recently done those services or been able to provide those services outside of a public safety power shutoff. And I'm going to focus on a recent winter storm that was really impactful for Nevada County, just kind of as an example of how we partner. So that's what we'll talk about today. So a little bit about Nevada County. All of Nevada County is in a tier 2 or 3 fire threat district. So it is a really high fire threat area. We are in a fairly urban, well, not urban, but, you know, sort of city center, and just got notified as an organization that our current insurance carrier will no longer provide fire insurance for us. So just a little piece about the fire threat in Nevada County is pretty significant. We've experienced 2 fire evacuations in the last year. We also get some significant winter weather, and I'll talk about some of the impact of that today. Also, interestingly, there are multiple utility companies. So the eastern half of Nevada County hits Nevada, the state, and there are 2, their power actually comes through the state of Nevada from 2 different utility companies. So, and then PG&E serves the western half of the county. So that makeup of utilities is different and interesting and challenging. And we really have been hit with some of the most significant public safety power shutoffs. So as an example, the first year we experienced PSPSs, I think the first event lasted about 9 days because it was multiple events that ran together. So there were, you know, large areas of the county that were without power for that long extended period of time. So how do we work with integrating individuals with disabilities and older adults into all of this emergency planning and response work? So we have this established relationship with our local Office of Emergency Services. June asked, you know, if you disappeared tomorrow, would this work continue? And I can talk. So we've seen turnover. I'm a newer executive director. Anna Acton was our previous director. And so we've had that turnover, and that relationship continued. We continue to have monthly meetings. I've worked at Freed for about 10 years, so I've been integrated into all of this work as it's gone on. We've also seen turnover in our Office of Emergency Services side. And again, that relationship has continued. I think something that's a little bit unique about Nevada County, it's about 100,000 people in the county, so it is a smaller community. There's a lot of nonprofits. There's a lot of coordination that happens within the county. And a lot of people know each other. So An example of that is, the medical health operational area coordinator, or the MOHOC. Some of you might be familiar with that terminology. Used to work for Freed as a past Freed employee, so has sort of that disability framework, and really, we're fairly integrated in the community in lots of different ways. So we have seen leadership change, and the relationship has been able to continue. I've talked about, we have a monthly coordination meeting. That just makes sure, I think, that we are continuing to stay abreast of what's happening with the Office of Emergency Services and what they're working on, and that they're aware of what we're working on, the challenges or what we might be seeing in the community, conversation or advocacy that may need to happen with utilities or other situations, and just make sure that we're always thinking about this in an ongoing basis, no matter what time of year it is. We participate in emergency plan development and in training. So as the county is updating their plans, we're collaborating on what that looks like, and providing feedback. And we participate in trainings that are done countywide, particularly around the access and functional needs population. So the county does a few trainings a year with the hospital, nursing homes, medical facilities, and we participate in those trainings as well. Transportation is involved, so we're part of that. We're integrated into that planning and training as well. And then we have an aging and disability resource connection in Nevada County. So our ADRC partners we're meeting with regularly, and we can really work together to talk about unmet needs and just be aware of what's happening with the population overall through that collaboration. So again, kind of getting everybody to share space, to share stories, really gives us a full picture of the needs, unmet needs, and how we can react. That's been really helpful, particularly during COVID, talking about unmet needs that the community had and how we could work together as a community to meet those. And really, I think we've convinced Nevada County, maybe not convinced is the right word, but we've worked with them effectively and long enough that they really understand that if you prioritize the access and functional need community, or people with disabilities, older adults, you're really taking care of the whole community. So by prioritizing that group, you make sure everybody's needs are met. At least that's what we, work to remind them of. And I guess I would just say, it's not that there's resistance to prioritizing the community, but if you're not having the conversation regularly, it can get forgotten, right? And so by being at the table and by reminding people all the time, that's how you make sure that those needs stay at the forefront of everybody's mind. So I think a good example of this in our county is the county does a Ready, Set, Go handbook. They direct mail this to all households. They've done this for the past few years. It's fairly extensive, and it talks about all sorts of emergency planning situations, but they really have just integrated the access and functional needs strategies into emergency preparedness for all. And there's a photo on this page of on this slide of one of the pages of that handbook. So I just wanted to highlight, when the county was putting this together, they used Freed's, they used our emergency planning sort of process that we do with consumers and our forms and tools, and adapted those to this book. So it's just a good example of really highlighting, you can just integrate these pieces into the planning that everyone is doing. And that, again, you meet everybody's needs. So in this section, assistive technology is integrated, durable medical equipment, service animals, reminding people about medications. There's a photo on this page of two women who are packing bags, their go bags for an event. These are two freed consumers, and they're also people that survived the campfire and relocated to Nevada County. and have worked with us on really hardening their emergency plan. Their family has multiple people with multiple disabilities, so they've got a lot of needs that they need to consider in their planning process. And in this book, they also highlight our disability disaster access and resource services. So again, it's going out to every member of the community, and it's just integrated for everyone. So what does the partnership look like? And it really depends on the event, obviously, and what's happening, but we certainly have embedded staff at the Emergency Operations Center during an event, during wildfire evacuation, for example, so that we have a direct line from what our staff are hearing as they're responding in the office and with the county and what is happening on that level. And we can have really clear, easy communication. We're not always embedded in the EOC. It just depends on the situation, but we also have direct contact information and just sort of an agreement that, you know, so our OES program manager, the emergency operations coordinator, the Mohawk, they all have my direct communication. I have their direct communication. We have cell phone numbers exchanged. And we, you know, and the understanding that it's okay to use those and it's okay to use them during off hours or at odd times. We just want to keep that communication line open. And then we do a lot of co-planning with 211, our Nevada County 211, Public Health and County Social Services, along with Office of Emergency Services. So there's sort of, you know, the group of organizations that are providing emergency response and planning services. And we're also meeting regularly and coordinating all of our work together. And we have a shared communication system that we use during emergency events. So I'm going to talk about a snow event. During the snow event, we had direct referrals coming from 211 that came to both Freed and County Social Services. And then as we were communicating with those individuals and finding out those needs, we are sharing back with the county sort of escalations that need some sort of county response. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looked like, but we've had this long-standing sort of referral, direct referral tool that we've used so that we can really quickly get people to the resources that they need. So talking a little bit about this winter storm, it was long. About 2/3 of the county was without power, which was really significant. There were over 500 individual outages. Roads were blocked for many days. So there's an image on the screen of a snow-covered road, an emergency vehicle on the other side of a downed tree that is laying on power lines. And this is what much of the county looked like. We had a lot of snow come down really quickly. That was fairly unusual. And phone and internet lines went down. And so the longest that some individuals were without power in this event was 16 days that it took to restore power. So pretty significant event. I've got a graph on the screen that is kind of a timeline of that event. So we saw the initial snowfall on December 27th. There was additional snowfall on the 29th. So at the height, there were 32,048 customers without power. And something to think about when you think about the number of customers without power is that one customer might be, say, a mobile home park that has 100, you know, individual households. So it was really significant. 7 days from the start of the event was when county roads were cleared. So that was a lot of what we really were challenged with. Really, initially, people were stuck. They couldn't get out of their homes and people couldn't get to them. So this was a different event in that for the first 3 days or so, our staff were really talking to people about their level of emergency and really helping them understand when to call 911, when it was time to call emergency services, or supporting them to call emergency services through 911 through a 3-way call directly. Because we couldn't get to people to provide services and people couldn't get out of the area to receive services. So that was quite different. And also, we were during this time, again, prioritizing people and referring giving that direct loop back to the county so the county could prioritize which roads to clear when they needed to send emergency services or public works, or they had, you know, all sorts of groups working to clear or help people get out of homes. So if it wasn't an immediate emergency and it didn't require 911 today, but maybe it would tomorrow, we could escalate those people to the county so the county could get people out there to help get people out of their homes when that was needed. So it was quite a different experience for us, and I think we learned a lot from it. So I'm going to try to share some of what we learned. So what worked well? We had phone calls from Office of Emergency Services early on to really help share how wide the situation was, what exactly was happening across the county that they were aware of, and that they could establish what available resources we had really quickly. This was not a public safety power shutoff. So our typical services that we can provide during those power outages weren't initially available to us. But, you know, I think part of this collaboration, I reached out to our grantor to request, you know, to kind of find out if we could provide those services. Because of the way this event was structured, it didn't meet a criteria that PG&E has to authorize that use. So I actually went back to our Office of Emergency Services and shared, you know, PG&E has the ability to allow us to do this, but this event looks, you know, a little bit different. But perhaps we could do some advocacy. And Office of Emergency Services contacted their PG&E contact who was in the county, who was seeing what was happening, who was, you know, aware of the significance of the event. And about 2 hours after that, we got the call that we were able to use those resources. So great example of how that collaboration really worked. We worked together around community messaging and misinformation, which was widespread and challenging. We had a shared referral system from 211 to the county and Freed. We've talked a little bit about that. And then again, triaging that information back to the county. So we also, through our county connection, were in communication with the shelter locations, and they were coming into contact with lots of folks who had, you know, specific disability needs and complex needs. And then we were able to get in there and provide some services to meet those. We were able to quickly shift direction when we needed to. So a good example of this is towards the end of the event, what we started to see was people running out of propane. So they might have a backup generator that was helping them power their home, or power needed medical supplies, or power, you know, ability to cook food or to heat water, things like that. And as propane resources were dwindling, we, you know, 211 and Freed really saw that first with the number of people we were talking to, and were able to push that to the county so the county could start coordinating with propane providers and really seeing how they could increase the propane that was coming into the county and how to get it to households. We collaborated with paratransit, transit, and county staff around transportation, and reassigned county staff were reassigned to support 211 to receive calls, and they were doing door-to-door check-ins, particularly in our senior mobile home parks. So that was county legal staff out doing some of those door-to-door check-ins, because we had provided information that those communities were really struggling. So this was a huge event for us. Just really quickly, we did support 4 counties that were affected. We received 917 individual requests for service. We provided 82 hotel rooms for 165 individuals. So again, this was really widespread. And, you know, with certain medical conditions or even certain just age experience, right? If you don't have heat and you don't have a source of heat in your home and it's 30 degrees outside, being in a heated environment becomes life-sustaining medical equipment. And so that really expanded the number of people that we were serving. We provided transportation to hotels. We provided 725 food vouchers for individuals in hotels and folks with some specific dietary needs that lost food, and 574 gas or fuel vouchers to help keep people's generators running and support propane purchases and things like that. So what did we learn? You know, and we're meeting about this actually later today. We've had a debrief meeting since the event. So the county has a daily briefing with county departments, and we want to be at that table. And so 211 and Freed have really said, hey, you know, we learned from this event that because there was so much misinformation spreading really rapidly, we want to be at that table to make sure that we can share that information back and forth. And our monthly meeting that has typically been with OES and Freed, we're adding in additional partners. So Department of Social Services is going to come to that meeting, as is our 211 partner, because really we all know that we're working together to find this synergy. There's going to be a community-based organization liaison position that the emergency operations center. So that's going to be created. And county IT staff is working to support the development of a new collaborative tool, because we saw that while it was really helpful to have our tool and it's worked in past events, when the scale expanded as quickly as it did, we needed some new usability. So county is going to support us as community-based organizations to build what's needed to make that work. And then the county is also working on the development of a VOAD, which is a voluntary organizations active in disaster group. So again, we've got kind of a more solidified kind of picture of what resources are where and how we might access those as these large events continue to happen. So that's what I've got for you today. And I think we're going to have some time for questions. I do have to say that I have to drop off at 11:25. So feel free to pop stuff in the chat and I can respond there. Or if we want to take questions another way, I'll put my contact information in the chat as well. So if anybody has follow-up questions or wants to connect, I'm happy to do that as well. And with that, Carly, I'm going to turn it over to... Oh, yeah.
Carly, did you want to take a few questions in the chat?
Yeah, I certainly can.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll hold off and just get Sheri, and then we'll have a free casual discussion with both people. So let's give Sheri her 15 minutes, and then we'll open that up for a real robust discussion, keeping in mind the Carly's early drop-off time.
Sounds good. Thanks, June. I'll pass to Sheri.
Yeah, thank you. Just give me and Sheri 1 second. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Carly. This is Sheri, and I am going to share my screen here, and then hopefully Anthony will be able to take control of the PowerPoint. Anthony, are you able to see the screen?
Yeah, I can see the screen, but
okay.
I'm not sure why. Can you go navigate to the bottom and press more and see if you can allow remote control?
Okay, let's see here. It's not showing that option. As a co-host, I would think you would be able to take control.
Yeah, let me see if I make you host, see if it's different. All right, Sheri, you are now host. see if there's an option to, at the bottom, it should say share or support. If there's not, are you comfortable presenting in this format right here?
It says on mine, it says one participant can share at a time, at advanced sharing. Okay, who can share? It's not, can you ask for the sharing privileges?
Yes, can you make me
Okay.
host again?
That would
I'm
be
sorry about
June.
this technical difficulty, guys. Thank you for bearing with us. Okay. Okay, there isn't an option, Sheri.
Okay, I will have to just do it myself then.
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
All righty. My only problem is that I've lost all my notes now. Okay, so thank you, Carly. That was great. It was great hearing about your experiences with a specific activity, a specific event, and how you worked with your partners in the community, the CBOs, as well as the government entities. It was really helpful. So I'm just going to introduce myself again.
I have your slides up. If that would help, I might be able to rescue you. Or
that would be great, June, if you could. I'll go ahead and stop share.
Okay, let's see if I can share screen.
Okay, and if that would be great, we can see it. If you could just start at the beginning so everybody doesn't, wait, almost had it.
It's not letting me do the, hang on.
June, at the
If you
top
hit on
left,
enable editing and then slideshow begin from the first slide should be okay.
I don't know why it's not letting me do slideshow.
June, at the top left, there is a screen with the play button next to the arrows at the top left. So keep going up to the top left, and then in an orange bar, and then keep going that square with the triangle in it to the left a little bit more. So navigate to the left. Right there, press that button right next to the arrow on the other side. The next one, right there.
Yeah. Let's see if I can just close it out.
It says resume slideshow right there. If you can press that tab.
Let's see if I can show a reaction. Yes, I can, but I'll struggle with your.
Okay, it shouldn't be locked. I don't know why it's not going from the beginning.
Okay, let's see. We're good?
We are good. It's just a little smaller than, I don't know if everybody can see the slide okay.
Fix this.
There we go. There we go. Perfect. Great. Thank you. Sorry about all the problems here. We thought we had the technical difficulties ironed out earlier. Okay. A little bit of background about myself. and SVILC. Good morning again. As June shared, my name is Sheri Burns. I'm the Executive Director at Silicon Valley Independent Living Center, or SVILC for short. I'm a white older female with chronic health condition who has short brown hair. Today I'm wearing a checkered turquoise top and my screen background is blurred red. My room is red and it's blurred. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I've been working in the Independent Living Network for over 30 years, and emergency preparedness, especially for those with access and functional needs, has been a passion of mine for most of those years. I see this issue of emergency preparedness that includes everyone in our community, which includes folks with access and functional needs, as an independent living issue, and need for all independent living centers not to mention all community-based organizations to address and make part of their work. SVILC is a disability peer-based community-driven organization that promotes living independently in fully inclusive communities. We have been serving the Santa Clara County community for over 45 years. And Santa Clara County is home to 2 million residents across 1,300 square miles. San Jose is the largest city in Santa Clara County and is the 3rd most populous in California and the 10th most populous city in the United States. SVILC is one of over 400 centers for independent living in the country and one of 28 centers in California. We directly serve about 1,200 individuals with disabilities and provide information referral and technical assistance to about another 4,000 residents and businesses each year. 14% of our population identifies over the age of 65 and 5% under the age of 65 have a disability. When you couple that with folks that are in the older population of over age 70, that number goes up to about 12%. Over 6.5% live in poverty, and there is a significant racial ethnic diversity in our community, with 39% identifying as Asian, 25% identifying as Hispanic or Latino, and the median household income is nearly $125,000, and the average monthly rent is $2,800 for a 1-bedroom apartment. All of the independent living centers provide 5 core services, which are advocacy, information and referral, peer support, independent living skills training, and transition services for youth seeking to transition from high school into college life, or independent living and people with disabilities wanting to move out of skilled nursing facilities or other institutional environments into community-based living. California also includes 3 more services for independent living centers, and those are housing assistance, personal assistant services or caregiver services, and assistive technology. We are not, our county is not as high of a tier 2 and tier 3 or high risk area for disasters outside of earthquakes, which could hit any of us. We have a couple of major fault lines running through Santa Clara County, so we are at risk for that. But as far as for fires and those kinds of disasters, there are tier 2 and tier 3 areas, tend to be more in the northeastern part of the county, butting up against Alameda County. So from Milpitas over to east San Jose and the foothills there. And then also in the south, our southern cities are Gilroy, Morgan Hill, and San Martin, which tend to be a combination of urban and rural communities. And then southwest, we butt up against Santa Cruz Mountains. So we have quite a few folks that are in the Los Gatos Hills and going into Santa Cruz that are also in the tier 2 and 3 areas for at risk. Next slide, please. So here's just a highlight. There's about over 12 different services that we provide at SVILC, but these are the kind of a highlight of those services that are available. We have advocacy, both self and systems change, and that's learning how to speak up for yourself and your needs and how to make changes in your community that matter most to you. Independent living skills, which are life skills that make you more independent. such as budgeting, time management, cooking, emergency readiness, and more. Peer support, which offers a safe place for folks with various disabilities to come together and discuss what's on their mind amongst their peers and share ideas and suggestions to support each other. We have Zoom meetings weekly for peer support and maintain those during COVID. Hopefully we'll be able to go back to in-person soon. Information referral, which is our #1 requested service, and that's getting connected with other organizations, benefits, services, and other resources in the community besides what we provide. Personal assistance services, learning how to find, hire, and manage a caregiver. And you're going to hear more about that. SVILC is a member of the Quick Match Registry, which was founded by the Marin Center for Independent Living. Assistive technology, which offers technology and adaptive aids that make independence more possible for people with significant disabilities. And we are home to the device lending and demonstration library and voice option services. We are one of 12 device lending libraries in the state of California. Housing search assistance, learning how to search and apply for housing in the county. We have free workshops in English and Spanish every week. Benefit services, learning about all types of disability benefit programs, SSI, SSDI, Medi-Cal, in-home supported services, CalFresh, and the like. And institution to community and youth transition services. And that is moving people out of nursing facilities and other institutional settings and into the community. We also have a computer lab and a food pantry, provide emergency rent assistance, and a few more things that I'm going to cover next under emergency related services. Next slide, please.
Excuse me, if I could interrupt really quick, this is the captioner. If you could read slower, that would be helpful.
My apologies. I'm so sorry. Thank you for reminding me. So we have a lot of emergency related services. And as I mentioned early on, is that emergency preparedness and response have been a long time passion of mine, and worked really hard to incorporate these into not only our independent living services, but also the community's response as a whole, to make sure that all of our community partners and our government entities are incorporating folks with access and functional needs into their planning and response efforts. So we provide temporary housing for homeless persons with disabilities, and this is a partnership with the Santa Clara County Office of Supportive Housing, readying individuals for permanent supportive housing placement. Why is that important as far as emergency preparedness? Because more people who are housed, the safer they are in an emergency situation. We certainly all saw that as an issue during COVID. It became much more aware as a concern that we have thousands and thousands of individuals in our communities who are unhoused, and it put them in a very, very unsafe situation when people were required to socially distance and isolate from others. And so when you've got people who are living in encampments and other tenuous situations, then it puts them at risk. So we work to provide both temporary and permanent housing for as many of our unhoused residents with disabilities as possible. We also provide rent relief, and we have a partnership with various cities, primarily Milpitas, Sunnyvale, and Gilroy. And we have worked with another nonprofit partner, and that's Destination Home, to provide the local emergency rent assistance program funds, or ERAP. The state's program was the Housing is Key, but the local jurisdictions also had funding available, and so we were part of that rent relief effort. We continue to do that today with partnerships with those cities and using community development block grant funds. We also provide emergency hotel stays, and that's a partnership with FEMA's, Federal Emergency Management Agencies, emergency food and shelter program. And that allows us, again, to provide emergency hotel nights for individuals who are in between housing situations. We're also a partner with the county's Adult Protective Services and the Home Safe, which was a pilot project 3 years ago and has now become a statewide program in all of the counties. And that is to provide more intensive case management services for at-risk older and dependent adults who have been referred to Adult Protective Services. Personal assistance services. As I mentioned, we are a member of Quick Match. There are a number of agencies, both independent living centers and others, that are partners with the Marin Center for Independent Living. And we have our own customized website where we have screened and individuals who are caregivers and wish to be a part of the Quick Match registry, who are available for our consumers once they learn how to use the registry and sign up and get all of the training on that. They're able to then locate potential caregivers to meet their needs, and then contact them for some screening and setting up an interview, and then potentially hire them to meet their needs. This was a response to basically an emergency situation that many of us are experiencing in our areas. It's just not a Bay Area problem, in that there is a lack of, just a tremendous shortage of caregivers, especially through the in-home supported services system. But also in our county, there was no backup for low-income folks who did not qualify for in-home supported services, but could not afford to hire a caregiver through a private company, a home health agency, for example, where they're paying for insurance and overhead and all of the additional costs, which might come to $40 or $50 an hour. And folks that were low and low moderate income could not afford that. So we have on our Quick Match registry about 30 individuals that are actively available for providing services to meet specific needs and timeframes. And that all can be customized for folks. Again, during emergency situation, this was really important for us to have in place, because when COVID hit, and in mid-March of 2020, when everyone was basically told, you have to shelter in place, businesses shut down, we're not providing on-site services any longer. Government entities tend to have a more difficult time, I think, pivoting from traditional methods of providing services. And we saw that with our in-home supported services program, and that they were basically offline for several days. And people weren't able to get in touch with them for emergency backup caregivers or new caregivers if somebody was leaving. So we were able to be available and responsive to the needs of the community right away. Matter of fact, our IHSS folks relied on us to assist them with providing matches because many of the folks on our Quick Match registry are also in-home supported services caregivers. So probably about 40% of them are. So we were able to meet the emergency needs during the beginning stages of the pandemic because of having the service available and having it available online. We also have a food pantry, which is a partnership with the Second Harvest Food Bank. We've had this partnership for decades. We started this, so we were a supplemental food site back in the, I want to say probably late 80s, and establishing a very small pantry at that time, just out of our main office. We since had expanded to we have a satellite center or office in Gilroy that serves the south part of the county, Gilroy, Morgan Hill, and San Martin. And we also have a pantry there as well. But we have really expanded the service in the last number of years. Again, just before the pandemic hit, it was really important that that we had added in a component with being able to provide fresh fruits and vegetables and frozen meats through a county RFP that came out that was kind of an infrastructure grant, if you will, limited amount of money, but it was enough for us to purchase a large refrigerator freezer for both sites, our main office and a smaller one for our Gilroy office, and to beef up basically the services that we were providing in the food pantry. And instead of just going to Second Harvest once a month to pick up non-perishable items, we were able to go on a weekly basis in stock with fresh fruits and vegetables and frozen meats, as I mentioned. This was essential, again, during the pandemic, and being able to respond to the very quickly to the immediate food access needs of many individuals in our community, both older adults and persons with disabilities who were, again, sheltering at home and may not have had the ability to purchase groceries. They could, some of them were not eligible for Meals on Wheels program because of age or other reasons. So having the food pantry was essential during the pandemic, and it continues to be a main emergency service that we provide to members of our community, and still a huge need today. Carly mentioned it, as well as Eli Gallarden last week, about how many of the centers for independent living in the state of California are part of the Disability Disaster Access and Resource Center, or DDARC. And that is a partnership with the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers and PG&E. And that's to provide disaster planning and emergency services to residents that are affected by public safety power shutoff events. And then we also have a new emerging partnership with the Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And we're going to be working with them beginning this year on deploying many more backup power stations or backup batteries for individuals who are in those tier 2 and tier 3 areas and are at risk for public safety power shut off situations, or other reasons why their power may go off and they need a backup battery and can utilize a backup battery for their equipment or health needs with keeping the power on in their homes. And then lastly, the Access and Functional Needs Task Force, which came out of a lot of the work that we were starting to do very collaboratively with the county's emergency management agency. And it was a monthly meeting that was started a number of years ago, pre-COVID. I think it was 2019, that the then public information officer with the county wanted to work with us to bring other government entities together, other emergency managers, community and faith-based organizations, and community advocates together to address disability access and AFN equity in public areas and in government services. And a number of folks that are part of that AFN task force, which we continue to meet on a monthly basis, are participating in this training today. So thank you for Molly being here, and Anne and Lisa with our center, and also Marisol Torres, who is the AFN coordinator for Santa Clara County's Emergency Management Agency. So we continue to meet on a regular basis and try to affect positive change in our community and the response of our community to emergency situations. Also, part of that is that we are a Silicon Valley Independent Living Center, along with the San Andreas Regional Center in our area, are co-leads for the Access and Functional Needs Function Committee for our VOAD, we do have a VOAD, and Carly mentioned VOAD stands for Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. Our VOAD is called Cadre, and we've been around since the late 80s, early 90s, and that stands for Collaborating Agencies Disaster Relief Effort. And so we are a key partner and member in that particular group. And there's about 75 agencies that are part of Cadre. The board and leadership committee meets on a monthly basis, and we provide a lot of training. Again, because of the pandemic, it's all been online, but in the past, a lot of trainings that have been in person on various topics that are beneficial to members of our community and to other emergency managers to make sure that they are addressing the needs of everyone in our community as well. Next slide, please.
So Sheri, June,
Yes.
you're at the 1 minute mark.
Okay.
I see you have a lot more slides, but they
Yeah. How about we go down to the outcomes? Because I did highlight, it's slide number 13, I believe, partnership outcomes. Because the other slides just go into a lot more depth of what I just talked about.
so you have
Great, thanks, June.
2 minutes or less.
Thank you.
Sure.
So some of the partnership outcomes and benefits of all of these partnerships that I talked about are that we have more residents with disabilities in our community that are prepared to be resilient during a disaster. We have not only provided them with regular training, we have a workshop that we do every single month on disaster preparedness and have been doing that for years. We provide them with tools. They get a kit, a safety in place kit, or skip kit, what we call it, and has water and food and flashlights and Mylar emergency blanket and a whistle and all kinds of supplies that they get started with. In addition to that, we have, as I mentioned, our DDAR services that they can get a power generator if that's going to meet their needs to address their health needs during a power shutoff. Along with the regional center, we're the co-lead for Cadre. I mentioned that before. And we have a seat at the County Emergency Ops Center because of that. Santa Clara County Emergency Services and Public Health, the SVILC is a partner in access and functional needs planning and response needs. SVILC was able to advocate for the county emergency management services to provide paratransit services to evacuate disabled residents to a temporary shelter during the 2019 SCU fire. That was another benefit and outcome. We've also provided over 400 families with rent assistance during the pandemic through our partnerships, and helped over 100 older adults and persons with disabilities who are at risk of becoming homeless be able to stay in safe housing through our partnership with APS. And SVILC has provided over 500 bags of groceries to families with disabilities during the past year through our partnership with Second Harvest Food Bank. Lastly, we've been able to advocate, next slide, for Santa Clara Public Health, County Public Health. Are we on the last one? Yes. To access accessibility at all county vaccine sites, to provide phone-based scheduling support for residents with disabilities, and provide in-home vaccinations for those who were less mobile to get to sites. SVILC, along with the San Andreas Regional Center, partnered with the City of San Jose and Safeway Pharmacy to offer vaccine clinic at the Regional Center with customized support for 300 residents with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We also partnered with AKI, which is a local federally qualified healthcare center, to provide accessible clinics for residents with disabilities and the unhoused. And lastly, one of the partnership outcomes and benefits is that the Santa Clara County Public Health Department provided SVILC with 300 free antigen test kits and KN95 masks to distribute to people with disabilities and older adults who had less access to those items. Okay, and now that's it. The last slide is just our contact information, and hopefully we'll be able to open it up for questions. And if Carly's still on, she'll be able to join me with answering questions. But I know we have a lot of you on who are part of this, who also have some great ideas and thoughts to share with some of the questions. Thanks, June. Back to you.
Thank you. Well, we could go on for hours here. What great information. So Carly had to drop off, but there are some questions for you in chat, and can you access them, or would you like us to read them?
Let's see. I think I can access them.
Bottom two questions, one from Alexandra Enders and one from Catherine Hedges.
All righty. I will read Alexandra's question. Can SVILC access the FEMA emergency hotel stays outside a declared disaster? I know that these funds were available under the pandemic declarations, but how do you access them when there is no disaster declaration? Great question, Alexandra. Excuse me. Our emergency food and shelter services are actually available most of the year. It just depends upon the phase or cycle of the funding that's available. Sometimes there is a lag from the federal government of when the next round of funding is available to the agencies that apply for it. But historically, SVILC has been a recipient of funds every single year for the last 30 years. And yes, we do have availability to utilize those funds, unless it's in that lag time, for individuals who need temporary housing. And that's not just to pandemic related. During the pandemic, they had additional money that was available, but they're going kind of back to their regular allocation. And that is available year round most of the time for anybody. And then Catherine asked, how can autistic people get support from SVILC when they are not clients of the regional center? Most autistic adults do not qualify under SART strict functional criteria. So that was the first question. And then Catherine had a second question. So our services, Catherine, are available to people with all types of disabilities. Of course, depends upon the needs of that individual, how much service or training we'll be able to provide as far as our independent living skills and other support services that we provide. But you don't have to be a member of the regional center in order to participate in our services. And we have a number of folks with who are on the autism spectrum scale that do participate in some of our classes. It could be learning mobility training, it could be cooking skills, could be some basic money management. Depending upon what their needs are, we will do our best to serve individuals. We also work closely with Parents Helping Parents, and they have a number of programs and workshops too that are geared more for members of our community that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then there's a couple of other organizations like Greater Opportunities and a few Progna that focus their attention with their workshops and their classes for that particular population. And some of them are or are not part of the regional center. Catherine's next question was, if someone has an old skip kit and the emergency food has expired, how do you get a replacement for it? Yeah, so I would say, certainly call us. And if you are not a consumer currently with us, we would make you a quick one and make sure that you have all of the resources that you need. Typically through our disability disaster program is that we have some things that we will go through with individuals to find out if you have an emergency plan in place, if you have emergency contacts, if you've signed up for Santa Clara County alert system, those kinds of things. So we'll do like a little question with you and see what resources you need, make sure you have all of those, including getting you a new emergency kit with food and water that is not expired. So we have plenty of those available. So please contact us about that. Okay, and she's on a PHP, that's Parents Helping Parents, has told me I am not allowed to attend anything because I am past the age limit for their events. Oh, okay. I didn't realize they had a age limit for their events. But you know, maybe you can check with us and see if there's something that they're providing that's meeting your needs, and that we can complement that with service directly for you. Okay, what else do we have here? I don't want a whole new backpack,
Yeah,
just
let
the
me
food.
just,
Okay. Yeah, that, I mean, you can
interject.
contact us offline too, Catherine, about that. I'll put in the chat our phone number and our email address, and we'll, you know, try to get those replacement items to you. We typically don't have set-asides of water and food, but we'll see what we can do if you don't need the other items.
So Sheri, I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure that we give other people a chance that might be kind of chat to raise their hand. And raise the hand function is under reaction. You can raise your hand and I'll see it in the participant list. And we'll keep focusing on chat until I see a hand raised. So I see Alexander, did you have a question there that you want to voice? I think in chat it says,
It was a question for you, June. I mean, I can voice it. I mean, suggesting can't.
Yes, Sheri, did you want to answer this question from June? So this was for Carly, but let's see if you can answer it as well.
Sure.
Can you give more examples of what specific emergency plan involvement SVILC has had in terms of specific plan content? And can you define tier 1, 2, and 3 for those unfamiliar with this classification?
Okay. You
And
know,
just to interject,
I don't want to get the tiers,
before
the
Carly,
definitions wrong, but I can, if Lisa's still on here, I don't know. Yes, Lisa's still on here. If you can unmute yourself, if she probably has that knowledge off the top of her head. She is our DDARC coordinator, our lead
we
coordinator.
also
Thanks,
have a
Lisa.
link to those tiers that Carly put in chat. So we have both.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lisa.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
About the
Multitasking.
tiers, the definitions of the tiers, 1, 2, and
Oh,
3.
yes. So tier 1 is basically more urban. So if you're located like in the downtown regions, you're less likely to get impacted by PSPS. You can be impacted, of course, by rolling blackouts. Tier 2 and tier 3 are higher at risk fire zones in our area. Those are typically in the mountain areas. So it just depends on which level you are at.
And folks, Lisa, in those areas tend to have repeated power outages, right? Mostly because of wind and those kinds of
Yes.
circumstances.
Definitely, especially for example, in our county, Santa Clara County, they have implemented a lot of fast switches. So in order to prevent PSPS events, they're typically in the tier 2, tier 3. For those ones, if let's say a branch or like a squirrel jumps on the wires, it'll shut off their power within 10 seconds. And because of that, PG&E actually has to have someone come out and monitor each one of those lines to make sure that there's no further damage. So yes, a significant amount of tier 2 and tier 3 in our county have undergone power outages every other week or at least a couple times a month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa and Sheri. I just want to announce that I will be launching the polls. Sheri, there is a comment in the chat. Let me know if you want to read it out. You want me to read it out loud, or if you can do that.
Is this from Dawn?
Yes.
Okay, I'll read it out loud. As the Emergency Preparedness Coordinator at TCIL, and that's up in Eureka, California, I am interested in comparing notes on what items that you and other independent living centers are including in the emergency kits given to people. Absolutely. Feel free to get in touch with me, Dawn. I've put my email address in the chat, and we can talk about that. But just in general, the kits that we buy have a basic 1 day, one person, 1 day supply of items. And then we add additional items to it that we have purchased separately or have been donated to us, and then encourage individuals to add like medications or other customized items that they need in particular. But yeah, get in touch with me, please. And Ron Halog, thank you, Ron, has put in the chat the link to the CPUC map to check to see if you live in a tier 2 or 3 area. Thanks, Ron. Any other questions that I missed in the chat or that people would like to unmute and voice? And certainly anything that I can't answer, then I will be happy to check with Carly and see what her thoughts are on those as well. And I know June has that information, has shared with you in the Google Docs, some of our bioinformation and contact information too. Okay.
It sounds like for Sheri, for some of our out-of-state people or Southern California people, tier 2, tier 3, that we don't hear that as much in down here in the South, at least in the urban centers. And I'm wondering, that's California Public Utility Commission classification, right? So people in other states are gonna say, what's that? Well, that's why you don't have that in your state. That's like California specific.
Good point. Yeah, and maybe other states use just different terms and have classified their regions or likelihood for somebody, depending upon where they live, to be more or less at risk for certain disasters, whether those might be flooding or hurricanes or whatever, fires. But it gives you the idea of what that means, tier 1, 2, and tier 3, even though, as June said, it's very specific to California. And thank you, Lisa, for putting in a brief definition of what those tiers mean for California.
I don't see other hands raised yet, but feel free to pipe in with a voice question as well. In the meantime, Sheri, can you talk about your role in the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, and how you staff that? What's that like?
Yeah, thank you. That is part of Cadre, has a seat there. So depending upon who the person is on call through Cadre each month, we might be the one. We rotate. So on the folks that are part of the leadership team rotate each month and take responsibility for being the point person, if you will. And that is, the individual is responding to requests that come through either the county or one of our cities for assistance from Cadre. So that could come through our Google Voice, which is hooked up to our phone, whoever's on call. We respond. We have an exchange of information, and then a Cadre may or may not be activated depending upon what the request is coming through. If we are activated and it's at the county level, then we are whoever's on call at that point, or requested to come in, would come in to the table or the seat for Cadre at the Emergency Operations Center. And we're responding to sometimes procurement requests that come through, or other particular needs. Things that have come up in the past are adaptive equipment or assistive technology or durable medical equipment. For example, you've got people who are coming to a temporary shelter center, or have come to through the county system, and they need an emergency wheelchair, or they need a rollator walker, or they need a communication device. Then they would have that come through cadre, and then cadre, whoever the individual is that's sitting there, would then activate it out in community. Typically, if it's an AFN issue, it would come to both my partner at the San Andreas Regional Center and me, and then we would be able to respond, do we have that device, or can we obtain that device for that particular individual's needs? Those are the typically the kinds of things that come through, at least on the AFN end. And it could also be, it could be a request for an interpreter, an ASL interpreter, or, you know, any number of things that that our community might need in being able to be as independent as possible as they are dealing with that particular disaster. It could be an apartment complex fire, so it's kind of localized, if you will, or it could be something that's a little more regional. Like in 2017, we did have some flooding for parts of San Jose, and several hundred families in that area were affected. And so we had some requests that had come through for replacing equipment.
Hey, Sheri, it's Todd Holloway.
Hey, Todd. Good to hear you.
June went and stole one of my questions. So you've done more than a stupendous job answering all those questions. But June and I often talk about the difficulties that we have, you know, trying to duplicate some of the successes you've had with the safety power shutoffs, and trying to figure out a way to duplicate that with other entities that provide, with other utilities in California as well as outside of California in our situation. And Herman and Shaylin are on from the partnership as well. And this is something we'd really love to duplicate. Not only that, but also looking at maybe some of the documents and the things that you guys have showing, I guess, the nuts and bolts of the policy around how you do work with the EOC between your SIL and the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Whatever, you know, we can share that would be helpful for you and Armand, Shaylin. Happy to share any of those materials and that information. Within our center, we actually use a team approach to the Disability Disaster Access Resource Center, our responsibility, and that it's not just one point person. Lisa, who is on this call and responded about the tiers, is our lead person, but there's a team of 5 other individuals that work with her, and including management, myself. So that we are also abreast about what's happening. We have a kit that we pass from one coordinator onto another. So we have a person, much as I explained and shared about how we work with our VOAD and have a person of the month who is the contact, we do the same thing within our agency and have a person who is the lead contact person. We have a designated phone voicemail box in our phone system. We have a designated email for a request for DDARC help. And that comes, you know, to us immediately. We get that on our phones and on our laptops immediately. So whoever is the point person that month can respond very quickly.
That is a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of dedication, because that, you know, that call, a request could come in, you know, 8 o'clock at night, could be 4 o'clock in the morning. But emergencies don't happen between 9 and 5.
Nope, or Monday through Friday.
Right,
This is
exactly.
Todd, Sheri. No, I commend you. This is really, to me, it sounds like a promising practice we could duplicate. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, we've got a few more minutes. Anyone else with questions? Pipe in or?
Lisa Samaro, our coordinator, our lead coordinator, also put in the chat our DDA, our email, which is SCC, standing for Santa Clara County, DDAR@SVILC.org. And then our phone number extension is 408-894-9041, extension 253. And that's what I said is monitored. It's not that we, we'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning necessarily and respond to something that quickly, but it's monitored pretty regularly, and 7 days a week we're able to respond, especially if it's a real emergency situation. We did have one, I'll give you an example of a woman who needed to evacuate with her daughter had a significant disability, and the call came in at 7:30 in the evening. We were able to respond to that individual and put them up into find an accessible hotel room. And she was all set, both of them in their hotel room by 9:15 that night.
Well, this has been really impressive. I'm sorry Carly had to drop off, but you both have given us just a bucket full of impressive examples of, levels of collaboration and outcomes, regarding, real events over the last 2 years. And unfortunately, the snowstorm Carly talked about is probably very much part of our new normal.
Yep.
Climate change. So I want to remind everyone that we will also, a lot of good links in the chat, and we'll post that in our new Google Docs area in case you didn't get access to all those important links. So again, Sheri, thank you. Thanks for your hard work and
you're welcome.
This, and it's really important and dense information, a lot to think about in terms of our own practices out here. So thank you, and please all join us in the fourth Thursday of the month at 10:30 for the strategy call. And with that, one more reminder to take the poll. I see we've got a good group there represented. And if you can't access the poll, we'll put a SurveyMonkey link for you in on the listserv. So, and in chat. So, Sheri, thanks again.
You're welcome. Glad to be a part of the discussion. It was great.
So